Hello, welcome back. We're going to talk about a totally different topic today, which is installation and management of software. As you can see here, some of us already may know that there are 2-3 different ways of installing software on the Linux platform. One of them, obviously, you can do it through GUI, but that is not the focus of our discussion today. We are going to learn certain commands. There is a command called as yum, Y-U-M. It stands for Yellow Dog Updater Modifier. That is one command there. And the second command is the RPM command. So with the help of these two commands, these are in fact very powerful commands, or we can call them as tools. And these commands will help us manage, install, uninstall software. So this is what today's topic of discussion is. Now, what are we going to learn in this section is here. We're going to start gathering the information about the software that is already installed on our machine. We call our software as a package, and the group of packages is called as a group of packages. Obviously it's called as an RPM group. We'll come to that a little later, but basically what packages have been installed, what groups of packages have been installed, what are available to be installed. This is also something which is very important. What we have not installed but which is available for us to install from our network server, which we call as a yum server, that is something that we will see. Then we are going to search for specific package related things, about the information about the package, the things about files inside the package, and so on. So basically a lot of information gathering that we are going to learn. The commands, basically, as I said, the commands are only two commands, yum and RPM, and using those two commands we're going to learn how to do all these things here. Using the same commands with different options, obviously, we are going to learn how to install the package, from what we call as a repository, a place where all the packages are kept somewhere on a machine separately away from our own machine here. So how to install from the repository, how to install a group of package, then how to install uninstall the same thing, and how to upgrade it. If some new release has come out, then how are we going to upgrade it? So this is what our discussion is. Before we jump into this discussion, I would like to go through a concept of what is a Linux software. As I already mentioned, it is called as a package. We call everything as a package. So I will not use the term software going forward. I will say, have you installed this package, have you installed that package, that kind of a thing. Then what is actually this package? It is one file which has an extension of RPM. Inside that file there could be multiple files. It is kind of a zip or you can say a tar file, and multiple files are there inside this RPM file. And when we use the yum command or the RPM command, then the files are extracted from here and they are installed, and we'll see how that happens a little later. But basically a Linux package is a file with an extension RPM. Now there is a specific naming convention for this file. As you can see, here is the .rpm here, and this is a sample file or a sample RPM. The name of the file is in this case an FTP. That is what we call as a package name. The version of the package is after the dash. There is a dash in the middle. There is a version of the package. In our case, the version is this is the version 0.17 is the version. Then the release, how many builds have happened so far, that is what we call as a release, and this is what the release is here. And release also contains some additional information. More than how many builds have happened, it also contains the information about whether it's a release for Enterprise Linux 5, Enterprise Linux 6 or Enterprise Linux 5, RHL 9, which is the older way of calling Red Hat distributions, Fedora 4, SUSE version 10, and so there are quite a few release related information that are also embedded in this file name. And then there is a architecture. Architectures could be different things, 386, 686, those architectures are there. If the architecture contains word _64, it means the RPM has to be installed on a 64-bit machine. Now how do you find out whether your machine is a 64-bit or not? I think you have already learned a command. Let me show you that command there. uname -a will show you that this is a 64-bit or 32-bit. As you can see, usually I would have seen it here whether kernel is 64 or 32, after this I686, I would have underscore 64. If you would have seen that number, then your Unix kernel is a 64-bit, and then you need to install the 64-bit software or 64-bit RPMs only. In many cases, a 32-bit RPM will work on a 64-bit, but in my experience I have seen that this may not work all the time. So always try to stick to a 64-bit RPM on a 64-bit machine and a 32-bit RPM for a 32-bit machine. So that is what this architecture business is. And in this architecture business, if you, instead of this thing, if you find out that there is a word SRC instead of any of these words, if there is a word SRC, it means this package is not for any specific architecture. It is a source package. It means it contains the source code, the C programs, the header files for building that RPM. So you kind of there is a methodology or a mechanism to compile this RPM package, but you can actually see the source code for that package if this architecture shows you SRC. So this is what a typical Linux software is. Now once we have understood what this software or the package business is and the naming convention, let us go to the next one, is where to get these RPM packages from. As you know, Red Hat is an open source thing, or Linux is an open source thing. You can obtain the packages from almost anywhere. There are certain favorite sites of everybody. I will tell you what my sites are. If you go to Google and RPM Find is the one that I use from time to time. This is the site rpmfind.net, and then here you can search for any software. I'm going to search for a software for FTP, and you will get the RPM resource for FTP. As you can see, this is right here on the right hand side. It is a FTP package, and it's for i586 architecture. So there are different FTP packages there, and you can search for quite a few things. If you want to install a web server HTTP, then you will get the HTTP packages. I'm not able to find the HTTP. HTTPD, is that the package here? HTTPD is the name of the server. So this is the package for the HTTPD. This is 64-bit. This is a non-64-bit package. So this is the this is the non-64-bit, and this is the 64-bit. Version is 2.4. Here also version is 2.4.3. So this is where you find packages. There are other websites also, and those websites are, you can have a rpm.pbone.net, and you can have your own preference. You can download the packages and then you can install it. That is number one. Once you install the package, something happens to that package, and it goes in what we call as a RPM database. So what is this RPM database business? RPM database is a list of files. It is basically, it's information inside the database, and that database is a list of files that are stored in a directory var lib rpm. So let us go to that directory, cd var lib rpm, and if I type the ls command here, you will see, in fact, these are all files here. These are all files. There is a file called as base names, there is a file called as groups, there is a file called as packages here, quite a few of them, what packages are installed and all that stuff. This whole collective files is called as the RPM database. If you type the command file and star means all the files here, it will show you what type of files are these. This is the Berkeley database, B-tree database version number 9. And this is where the information about all the installed software is kept. So what is this RPM database? It is a list of files. I just showed you the names of the files that are stored in the var lib rpm directory. This list contains the information about all packages, the groups of packages that are installed on our system. That is very important. What is installed on our system is inside these packages. If you actually go and open those files, you will not see anything, because these are all binary files. Obviously, let me try to show you. This is a binary file, so you cannot see what's inside that. But the information of all the packages is stored in this database, in this set of files. and this RPM database is updated every time we either install or uninstall or upgrade any package. So the latest and greatest information is stored in this RPM database. Now the commands that we are going to learn, the RPM command and the yum command, they will update these files. They will update this RPM database so that it will have the most recent information about what is installed on our system. So that's what the RPM database is. Then there is one more concept here called as a RPM repository. Now, as I mentioned to you and I showed it to you, that you can download any of the RPMs Phoenix from any of those websites like rpmfind.net or pbone.net. But downloading one package at a time and installing it is a pain in the butt, for only one reason, and that reason is that one package, and in fact I will kind of mention it here. Let us say you are trying to install a package A, and package A requires package B, and package B requires package C and D, and then C also requires a package, C requires an F. So this is the chain. This is what we call as a dependency chain. I want to install package A, but for that I have to first install B, but before I install I have to install C and D, but before again I install C I have to install F. So this is what is the dependency chain is, and it is very cumbersome and kind of a headache related activity to install one package at a time, and therefore Red Hat and Linux people, they have come up with the concept of what is called as a yum repository. Repositories, so it is a directory. What is this repository? It is a directory on some server in your organization somewhere sitting else, which contains all the RPM packages and its dependencies and all its dependent packages. So A, B, C, D, E, F, all those packages will be sitting in some directory on some server in your organization, and that is what we call as a yum repository. And what do we do with that? So when we run the yum command downloads the packages from this repository, from this server, and installs it on your local machine. So it is kind of a network related activity. You run the command yum on one machine, it will download the packages from the other machine, and therefore the software doesn't need to be with you. It is stored somewhere in the central repository in your organization. So this is one of the major breakthroughs I think that the open source community has done because of the headache of the dependencies of the RPM. Now, which server contains the information about this yum repository? When we run the command yum, we have to know where we need to download the packages from, and the location of this server, the name of this server, is stored inside a special file, and that special file is in the directory etc yum.repos.d. What is the name of the file, how it looks like, and all that stuff, we will see that in a different video. But right now just remember that there is a file sitting inside this directory which contains the name of the server that hosts your yum repository. So now we know quite a few concepts. We know what an RPM database is. This is on your local machine. This is not on the server. Yum repository, on the other hand, is on the server side. Okay. Now the next thing, what is a yum cache? Yum cache is a directory on your local machine now. Okay. It is, let me write it down. It is directory on local machine. Okay, where the information obtained from the yum repository is stored for better performance. Just like our web browser caching, you download the page and then it is cached on your system. Similar to that, there is a directory, and the name of that directory is var cache yum, and that is where the cache, the downloaded information, it is the information about the packages is actually kept in this directory, and this is the cache directory. Now you can change the cache directory by modifying the file etcyum.conf. I will show you that now. Let me again clear the screen. Vi etcyum.conf, and okay, I think somebody else has also opened this file. So this is what it says. In the main section here it says what is the cache directory here, and this is that cache directory. In fact, I will go over there and show you how it looks like. There are other things related to yum cache, those are there. I'm not going to go into the details of this. Let us go into the most important thing, which is the yum cache right now. So I am there, and if you see, there is an architecture which is i386 here, x86 basically. Then it is rel 6, and these are what we call as the cache directories for each yum server. So I had in the past configured a server called as base, server called as RHCSA, server called as shaker. So there were quite a few yum repositories. I was using 4 yum repositories at some point of time. Now I think I'm using only 1. I will show you how to configure that a little later. But in the base there are so many other files. This information, this information is downloaded from the yum repository for the better performance. So it's in this directory here, if you just want to note it down. We just need to know about all this stuff. We don't need to change any of these things, just to know the architecture, that where are the files located, so that if there are any troubleshooting issues, we may be able to debug it properly. So that is what yum cache is. From time to time we may need to clean our yum cache, and I will show you the command to do that. But when we type that command to clean the yum cache, you need to know that the files in this directory are gone and they are again reloaded. So that is what the information about yum cache is. And now the final thing I want to kind of go over with this concept. What happens exactly when we install a package? Number one, a list of dependent packages is obtained from the yum repository. So let us say you are installing the software, any package on machine A. Machine A is where you want to install the software, and your yum server is somewhere else on the network. So yum server is server B. So what happens, you run the commands on machine A, it will download the packages from B. What happens, a list of dependent packages is obtained from this server B, and once the list is obtained, a check is made to find out if all dependent packages are already installed or not. Then once you find out, let us say package K is installed but package F is not installed. K and F, these are just the examples for our simplicity. Then what we do, if one of them is not installed, we install that package. Obviously that package is downloaded first, then it is installed, and then the original package that we would like to install is installed a little later. So all the dependencies are installed first, and then the required package that we would like to install is installed later. And we don't have to worry about finding out the dependencies and all that stuff. All that information is coming from the yum server, and that is where all the packages are and the dependency information is. So once the dependent packages are installed, the required packages is installed a little later, and then when any package is installed, when any package is installed, multiple files are extracted from that package. Package is the RPM file. So from that RPM file, multiple files are extracted and they are copied to various directories, and with the proper permissions and proper ownership, they are kept in those directories. This is what exactly happens. Now where does these files go? Some files may go in USR, some files may go in var, some files may go in etc. We don't know where those files go. That is decided by the person who has written that package, and that is where all those directories are going to go. The permissions will be properly set, the ownership will be properly set, and everything is done. And then last thing is that the information about these packages, the dependent as well as the original package, it is then modified or it is updated in the RPM database that we have already seen. So this is exactly what happens when we install a package. And now in the next section we're going to talk about the commands, which are, as I mentioned, we will talk about the yum command, and to see how we're going to install, update, query all the information, and that is the next section. Thank you.